Hi, I'm Reverend Lorenzo, and this is Holy Heretics. I am a minister in the Disciples of Christ here in Ohio, and I serve in the United Church of Christ. And I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Pastor Faith Solon. I work at United Christian Church in Clayton, Ohio. I'm also ordained Disciples of Christ. And like he said, we're Holy Heretics. We are two millennial pastors who are here to give our unfiltered thoughts on the joys and frustrations of following Jesus and working in church. So we're glad to have you.
Yes, thanks for being with us. It seems like it's like Good Morning America or something.
Good morning, America.
Good morning, Southwest Ohio. Anyway, that'll be good. This is how I'm going to edit it.
That's ADHD.
Yeah, I have ADHD.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
Yeah. All right. So this is our first episode, and we're wanting to give you guys a little bit of insight into who we are and how we got here, our path to ordination and all of that.
Because I want some answers.
You want some answers.
I want some answers. What did I do
to
end up here?
Where did we go wrong?
Yeah.
Just kidding, but like sometimes. So I was born and raised in a Christian home. Not parents, my mother has been...
I can edit all this. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I was raised Disciples of Christ after my mother remarried. My stepdad, Dave, is a wonderful gentleman, and they found a church together. It happened, their criteria for picking was the one that was closest to our house. It was within walking distance, which in a small rural Ohio town, there's a good amount of churches within walking distance of wherever you are.
Yeah, that comes into my story, too.
I grew up at Wauseon First Christian Church, and it was a Disciples of Christ church. We had no idea what that meant when we joined it. They just seemed nice. It seemed good enough. So our family went. That's the church I was baptized in. It's also the church that I was sitting in when I received my call to ministry.
Oh,
so
cool.
That was really cool. So you get asked to talk about your call story a lot as a pastor, and part of me hates doing it. I understand the necessity of it, but it's also, tell me about one of the most vulnerable spiritual moments of your life, like on command.
It's usually tell me in this room of strangers.
Yeah,
your most vulnerable
tell these strangers on the internet that you have no idea who they are, your call story. And I was 16, sitting in the church on a Sunday morning, trying to figure out what to do with my life, not really paying attention to the sermon so much, because I was 16. That was the first time I heard like God's voice, which is also a thing that is really, if you tell people you hear God's voice, is a cool way to alienate strangers from your presence.
Absolutely. Not good in a job interview.
Unless you're a pastor. There's all these weird things we do. But that's the first time I heard God's voice, where I'm sitting having this internal struggle. What do I do with my life? Got to figure out what's going on, which the idea that at 16 you have to figure out what to do with your life is a little bizarre, but that's a larger cultural context of just weirdness in America. But God was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is weird. But luckily I had some great pastors and mentors, one of whom, Reverend Mary Jo Bray. I told her I had this experience, and rather than diminishing my call to ministry or questioning the validity, which unfortunately is a lot of folks' experience, especially folks who are female, I think it helps that I was a potential female pastor talking to a female pastor. So again, dynamics there as well. But she said, I'll tell you some things about if God's truly calling you to do something. You have two options. You can either spend the rest of your life running from your call to ministry.
Yeah.
Or you can just do it.
the Jonah story.
Right. Yeah. And it's exhausting to evade God's will in your life. So I was like, oh yeah, that sounds terrible.
It's exhausting to evade God's will for the rest of your life. Yeah.
It was some wise counsel. With that, then I started asking her, okay, how do I do that? And she said, the path is you get a degree from bachelor's degree from somewhere, because really what you need is a master's in divinity to be ordained in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. That's what we require. She told me, it doesn't matter what you get your bachelor's degree in. God will use anything. You could just... she said, do something you like for 4 years, because seminary is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
Which is how I ended up getting a vocal performance degree from a Disciples of Christ college, which is where I met my husband, and then ended up going to Methodist Theological School in Ohio, because that's where I could get my MDiv for the cheapest.
Exactly.
And they seemed like a cool school.
And that's where I got my MDiv for the cheapest.
Yeah.
Yay! These are real deep theological choices.
Right? So then was under the care of the Commission on Ministry, which is its own, which we could talk about on another day.
Yeah, we should get some of the old-timer people that had to go to Cleveland to do it. Those stories.
Back when the offices were in Elyria. Yeah, this is all insider Christian Church in Ohio stuff.
Jeez
Sorry,
Louise.
you'll have to bear with us a little bit. But... yeah, so I was ordained in 2019 and got to do my first year of pastoring amidst a pandemic, and here we are today.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah. So,
my story?
What is your call story?
What is my call story? You think I'd have this down to a 5-minute spiel? We tell this all the time, or you apply for something, you apply for a job, or you apply for a grants or whatever. What's your call story? And you have to write it down. And they're like, tell me the most significant thing in your life in 2 pages.
300 words or less.
Yeah. Like, okay, I'm going to miss some stuff in there. So I grew up in a blended family where my mom's side of the family were disciples and my dad's side of the family are Lutheran, which is... I jokingly say that's you put these two things together and you find the UCC. That's
that
the
really is
middle
very,
point between these two things. I'm a product of the nature.
Yeah.
Not so much the nurture, but the nature.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went to a disciples church because it was 3 doors down from our house. So it was the closest. We could have gone to the Lutheran church, but we'd have to get in the car and go maybe a couple blocks over. It really wasn't that far away.
But in the winter, you still got in the car. And
Yeah. Especially in the winter in Northeast Ohio. Yeah. The hill that we lived on was like this, and everybody, they would shut the street down, the fire department, and kids would sled, and it felt like you're going 70 miles an hour. You're probably like 10 or 12 or something. But anyway, Bolindale Christian Church is the name. It's in Warren, Ohio. I don't know if it's still there or not, to be honest with you. One of the things that I like to remind my congregation is I'm 38, and I don't remember a time for me when the church was like thriving. You know what I mean? My church was never thriving. When I was a young kid, they were like, what are we going to do? The church is going to shut down if we don't XYZ.
How are we going to pay the electric bill this month?
This? Yeah. And it's just been that the whole time. We don't know how we're doing it. Anyway. Where was I at? Oh, my childhood. Bolindale, yeah. I felt a call to ministry very young. I don't think I was a teenager yet. And all the little church ladies were like, oh, you're called to be a pastor. And you know, yeah. And when I was in high school, wasn't the best student. I'd probably have been better if I'd stayed in class and not like skipped class and left the school and went into the woods to read by myself. But I was not a very good student.
Still doing an educational thing. So you know,
exactly.
Who skips school to read, Lorenzo? Come on.
To read the good stuff, not the stuff they're teaching. So when I was like, I want to be a pastor, and they said, well, you have to get these. Not only do you have to get a college degree, you have to get a graduate degree. Yeah. I was like, deuces, I don't need to do that anymore.
That seems too tough for me. Which isn't the case in all denominations, right? That's
true.
If only a different church had been...
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
3 doors down. Maybe you would have just gone straight there. Anyway.
I might have. So I joined a fire department, our local fire department, and I worked as an EMT, like a medic on an ambulance, for several years, trying to outrun God. And then
How'd that go for you?
I met this guy. I'm going to grab this.
Ooh, not your
there's
grandpa.
dog hair everywhere.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
Pet glitter.
Stuff's falling down. I met this guy Father Charles Crumley. He was our fire chaplain. He was a Roman Catholic priest. And he was like, hey, do you think you might have a call to ministry?
AKA, he saw it and he's, hey, dude, you getting tired yet?
Exactly. I remember I was reading Mother Teresa's autobiography, like at work, so I'd be in the back of an ambulance and reading that, and he was like, yeah, did you notice that you're the only one that does that kind of stuff? And I was like, oh no, it's happening.
Yeah.
So he really encouraged me to go the old-fashioned route. And at the time, I wasn't sure, was I like supposed to just be a disciple because that's what I grew up as? Mm-hmm. And there's so many different kinds of Christians. Mm-hmm. And I spent...
Was he trying to low-key get you to be a priest in the Roman Catholic tradition? Or
He was not, but there was someone I was dating that definitely was trying to get me to be a Catholic, but not become a priest.
Yeah, I was like, that's a little counterproductive if they were dating you and was like, you should be a Catholic priest.
These two things like touched and then they exploded. It was like Oppenheimer. Like, so that person and I no longer dated, and I was out on my search for denominational affiliation, which makes me want to gag. Anyway, I go to Kent State University, super progressive university. They're going to talk me out of this. That's what I'm telling myself in my head. I'm going to go, I'll get a degree, I'll go back to the fire service, and maybe I'll be like a lieutenant now and do shift stuff instead of actually like CPR on people. Mm-hmm. So I go to Kent State, I join their philosophy department.
Because that's helpful for an EMT
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
Yeah.
I joined their philosophy department. I'm like, this has got to be the most secular, ungodly place in this progressive school, right?
Little did you know.
Little did I know. I show up and the chair is a minister in the Disciples of Christ. And I was like,
man. Who?
What? David Odell Scott and his wife, Lauren, who's also a professor there, both ordained in the Disciples of Christ. So that about knocked me over. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, what the hell is this? And David and Lauren were really good at helping me to find things to study that had a religious bend to them. It wasn't like pre-seminary thing, but it was nice having a chair who was a minister. So when I was like, I want to do stuff in Latin, and then I want to like look up stuff in Latin. I want to look up Hildegard von Bingen, and I want to read stuff that Luther wrote, not just in German, but in Latin. Help me figure this stuff out. I was able to do it. And yeah. And so I had this real problem with denominations that... Like
a true disciple.
Yeah, exactly.
What could be more disciple of Christ than...
What's wrong with these people? Yeah. And I don't want to like call the individual denominations out, though I would like to... Let's just say, there's a lot of progressive mainline denominations who are like, we're super open to everything, and then you go to one of their local congregations and they're like, nope, hard no, lock that door. Yeah. And so I kept getting like stonewalled. I'd go to this church and they'd be like, oh yeah, we're the whatever the hell church, we're super open to everything, and you'd show up and they're like, oh no, we're still working on like race, let alone like women and clergy and LGBTQ people.
The district, synod, region, whatever you want to call it, can put out whatever edicts they want, but Joe Blow in the pew in the third row is gonna think how they think. Right?
Not necessarily doing the work. That's kind of
what a churchy phrase.
I'm done with my undergrad. And I know I want to go to seminary, and I don't have any affiliation, and it's like a thing you need when you go to seminary, because you're going to get ordained at the end.
You need somebody that's going to ordain you. You need an ordaining body.
Yeah, right? You need something. So I remembered I was in Cleveland, and I was driving back to Kent, and I was just like pissed off. Why none of these denominations are what they seem to be, and why is it that they go out and they say this, and then they're not? So I called my old pastor, Disciples of Christ pastor, and said, are the disciples of Christ open and affirming of LGBTQ people, ordaining women, of doing work on race and community and social justice and activism and stuff? And of course, he's like, yeah, that is definitely another one of these denominational, like...
We'll make an episode on that.
Yeah, this would be a whole other thing. This is... all that crap I just said about these other denominations, the disciples are just the same way. It depends on who you ask. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he said yes. And I was like, okay, the congregation support me. I want to go to seminary. Right. And he was like, oh, yeah. I was like the 4th or 5th generation in this disciples church. Mm. So they were like, yeah, of course. We're going to say,
We've known the Thomases
let's go to seminary.
Time, yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah. And so we did the thing. I went to same school, Methodist Theological School. Mm-hmm. I love that every time I tell people where I went to seminary, I then have to put like an asterisk and go,
but I'm
not
a Methodist. Yeah.
I know. Yes.
Especially with all that they've been in the news as of late. But yeah.
Big yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now it's which Methodist are you?
Mm-hmm. Are you the global or the United?
Global or the United? Mm. And then it's like, now we're the global. But anyway, that's not our problem.
Yeah. It is, but...
It is. Yeah, it's holy crap.
Problem for another day.
Yeah, definitely, because we have Methodist on our degree. I put mine in that corner so nobody can see it. So I was ordained in 2018, the summer of 2018.
Yeah.
And I'll be real with you, I really did not want to serve in churches. Churches were such a mixed bag of toxic everything that I was like...
You don't say.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I'm just going to stick with chaplaincy. That's the whole reason I'm here.
It could be like Father Crumley.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just do the thing that he did.
Do the thing and help talk to people. So I was working in a trauma center downtown Columbus during the pandemic, which was just a ball.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just great.
That wasn't toxic at all.
No.
No.
The pandemic was an absolute shit show for hospitals as well as congregations. And eventually, my position was eliminated. And they explained...
Because we need less spiritual care for people during a pandemic.
They were like, this has nothing to do with you. The hospital can't afford you anymore, even though you're the only night chaplain here in this trauma center.
Nobody prays at night.
Nobody dies at night. Nothing bad happens at night in an inner city. So I was let go. And shortly thereafter, joined the Air Force... reserve as a chaplain, which was also a ball. The pandemic didn't get any better in the military. And Then I served a church in Cincinnati that has since closed. And now, after a lot of soul searching, I have one foot in the United Church of Christ where I serve a congregation, and I'm really actually enjoying taking part of the life and the work of the UCC.
A part-time call.
Yeah,
right?
Part-time. Holy crap.
I think that might be part of the reason why it has been refreshing.
I'll tell you what. Part-time. So I'm now planning for the rest of my life. I think I'm only going to take part-time calls, and I'm working on another degree for counseling because I really like talking to people.
So biochemistry, which is interesting. When I first talked to Mary Jo about, I want to get into pastoring, she's like, bivocational ministry, and I was like, nah, that's for the birds. Chips all in, and she's like, there's wisdom there. There's good counsel there, but really did I listen? Yeah. Pearls before swine.
Yeah, yeah. That's the spiritual the path. So that's a little bit about us, a little bit about our journey. One thing in my journey that I left out was that I was on the radio at Kent State University, where I got the love of...
What was the call sign of that radio station?
WKSU. Yeah, but...
Was it like the Flash or something for...
Yeah, Black Squirrel. Oh. Squirrel. There's a whole story about Kent State and Black Squirrels.
Thinks their squirrels are special.
Yeah. Like exactly. Yeah. So we'd go... You can listen to Keeping It Classy with Zach and Lorenzo at Sunday 6 to 8 at Black Squirrel Radio or blacksquirrelradio.com. It was so fun. It's so fun.
You need to make one of those for this.
Yeah, I know. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
Where are you at now in your journey?
I don't know. It's so much of our spiritual journey is also tied in with our physical, mental, emotional. We're a whole person, and we try to divide ourselves into these artificial constructs. Backstory on me, I am a wife and mother. I've got 3 boys, 4, 2, and 1 year old. as one might imagine, having that many children close together was intentional, but also really difficult and a very dark season for me, especially like postpartum depression is a very real thing that a lot of women struggle with, and something that I think churches still don't exactly know how to minister to women during it, especially if that woman is their minister. Coming out of what was a really dark season, and now I don't know, I feel in a very good place spiritually, where I left my first call to ministry and I'm now in my second call to ministry. But I was lucky that through all of that, you hear a lot about deconstruction and folks questioning, do I still follow God or this church? And I definitely had some of those questions about the church, but luckily I didn't have those questions about my relationship with God, or I didn't question my call. I was like, my call is still real and valid, but the where and the how were the questions. So it wasn't as, I don't know, earth-shattering as it is for some people. Not that it didn't create huge life change and things, but now I feel that I'm in a pretty good space spiritually, and I feel like my call and purpose right now for the church in the year of our Lord 2023, about to be 2024, is to be this movement for modernization. I hate that word, but to pull the church kicking and screaming into the now, because I see there's such a, not a lack of willingness, but a lack of understanding how to minister to folks who are millennial or younger, where most of our churches are folks who are boomers and older.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out, how do we tell young folks about Jesus? Because clearly what we've been doing ain't working.
It don't work.
So
it's like that picture I sent you that said, if the world goes back to 1950, the church will be ready.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not helping us go into the future.
Yeah.
Just in case you were wondering.
My time machine isn't working yet, but yeah. So that's where I'm at. I'm feeling empowered spiritually to do that work, knowing it's going to be a battle.
Oh,
I got the armor of the Lord is upon me, and I'm ready for it. What about you, Lorenzo?
I'm in a good place. I had some rough seasons after ordination.
Is this a theme?
Yeah. The ordination, CPE was rough.
What is CPE for?
Clinical pastoral education. It's for chaplains. You have to have an ungodly amount of CPE hours to be certified as a professional chaplain. And I'll be very vulnerable. I lost my dream job at the trauma center. I lost my dad, and I got a divorce, like all within the same 6 months. And that's like during this pandemic thing too. So there was like a lot of loss and grief and garbage, and I was pissed off at the church, and it's just a lot. But where I'm at now, after maybe not so many years, because it's only been a couple of years since the whole pandemic started, but I feel like there's a lot in those years for all of us. I'm in a very good spot. I finally got to a place where I could see a therapist on a regular basis, like, and afford it, not like I was against it.
Affording healthcare in America.
Affording
Another
mental
topic
health
for another
care.
day.
Yeah. Just turn on the news and you'll see we can't afford mental health care.
Or just health care of any variety.
We'll just run with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that and just some life experiences have really got me to, I think, a better place. Frankly, going from full-time congregational ministry to part-time congregational ministry was an absolute life changer for me. The congregation I'm at now, I don't think I would have picked. If you gave me a board with 3 congregations on it and they were one of them 5 years ago and said, which one of these do you think you're going to end up at? I would not pick the one in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. That would not at all have been the one. But I'm in a good spot with them. I've really enjoyed my time in the UCC, frankly. There's still dysfunction. Like, I'm not going to say it's perfect.
It's in every church.
It's everywhere. The dysfunction is everywhere. But I was saying to another pastor, Pastor Katie, the UCC seems, it's comfortable amount of dysfunction, but just slightly more policy and procedure. and those rails help me out. I know there's a little something to grab onto.
Structure
just a
there.
little more structure there.
The disciples are the Wild West.
Oh, holy crap. Yeah,
Oh,
you want to
wow.
see like a Mexican gunfight. That's like the disciples. Like nobody knows who's going to pull the trigger first. Oh my God, what's going on?
Who's going to be here? Who's in charge? What's going on?
Yeah, I know. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Anyway, the UCC also, there's something about that tradition coming from like the German Protestants in one of these streams that I feel real connected to my dad's side of the family, and then with them being connected to the Christian connection to my mom's side. So it's like it feels like a holistic synergy thing. Yeah. And
holistic synergy.
I
Ooh,
like
buzzwords.
that. I like being in a room and be like, I could say I minored in Latin and I took German in high school, and there's others that were like, yeah, we did that too because of Luther. And you're like, yeah, but you didn't want to be Lutheran? No, there's too much there. That's too much, church. I needed to back off of the church, but I want the theology stuff. You know, it's weird. It's this weird spot. Mm-hmm. And one of these weird places that I found a lot of belonging recently has been a religious community in the UCC called the Order of Corpus Christi. Shout out to my siblings. And they're my kind of weirdos. And I went to this retreat over the summer. General Synod happened over the summer, and then they had this retreat. And the head of this order, we call them an abbot or an abbess, to get people to calm down before chapel, and so we could all process in, because of course we were going to process in. He would say, "The Lord be with you." And then everybody stops what they're doing, and they go, "And also with you."
And with your spirit.
Yeah, and we were going into chapel this one day during the retreat, and he says, "Dominus vobiscum." Oh, the Latin. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to be the cool kid, and I'm going to respond in Latin, and everybody's going to think I'm really cool and unique. And everyone else said it. Et cum spiritu tuo, baby, and with your spirit also.
What kind of weird church? I'm going to impress these people. I'm going to be the cool kid using my Latin.
Latin. So that happened, and I was like, oh, holy crap, these are my people. Mm-hmm. I want to hang out with you guys. And so I'm in this like discerning phase with them, and it's going very well. And one of the things I really like about them is they use technology. They're not afraid to use technology. We all get together, or whoever can get together, 10 o'clock at night, and we do night prayers at 10 o'clock every single night on Facebook. And they've done it for the past 4 years, every single night. So I know no matter how bad my day is, at 10 o'clock, I can get on there, and I see somebody leading it. And
how Vespers of you.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely. So I'm good. I'm better than I thought I would have been, to be honest with you. I thought I'd been like, this is crazy. I'm going to go do something else. Goodbye.
That's a theme I'm seeing in the clergy that are remaining post-COVID. Are people... I'm good, I'm great. People are like, I'm doing better, and are very proud of it, which is great. I mean, we all were through like this huge traumatic thing.
Absolutely.
But
it's like you either got better or you left.
You got better or you got out.
There was nothing in between. And frankly, people that we went to seminary with that I know have gone back to their secular jobs. And they're like, this is enough. I don't need to do this anymore. Yeah. And I don't blame them. Yeah. And part of that kind of understanding also led me to apply to a program to study to be a therapist, because Lord knows this country lacks mental health care, and so whatever I can do to help, I want to be able to do that. So that helps me spiritually, because it means there's never going to be a board that's going to hold my entire life, my income, my everything in their hands, and judge whether or not I can pay my bills.
Yeah, there's a freedom in that, isn't
There's definitely
a
freedom in that.
Lorenzo, let's talk about what our hope for this podcast is, and what's our why, what's our purpose.
What's our theology of hope, fellow malt maniacs would say, right?
So let you go over there.
So our hope, I think this is a good behind the veil. I think, God, being clergy, you really don't understand what it is until you're doing it. And I would say this even to seminarians who are in a graduate program and interning somewhere. Holy crap, listen, it's going to change. You're going to get out there and it's something completely different than what you're being told it is. And a lot of times I get, oh, you like work an hour a week? That's one of the things. Or like, oh, you hold people's hands and tell them everything's going to be okay. And it's, no, this is much more white knuckle than you think it is.
Yeah.
And there's just frustrations about it too. Yeah. Things that we always joke about of, oh, there are a lot of people that are saying, and it's, we were just talking about this with our charcuterie board. Who's saying it?
Yeah.
Nobody's saying it.
Many folks have told me.
Yes, many folks have told me.
We are concerned.
Yeah. Or you're in a congregation, there's no children, and they're like, oh, we need to start a youth program. Okay. Do you have children you're not telling me about somewhere or something?
Yeah. I know a big part for me in doing this is that I see traditional church as we've done it since like the 50s, 60s isn't working to reach folks now. Maybe this will reach some folks.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like I've been saying, my call is the same. My call is still to share the love and beauty of the gospel and Jesus and our divine creator with folks. So maybe this will be a good way to reach some folks and share that gospel and share that hope with people. Because we're going to talk here and share our frustrations with church, but there's also beauty and joy found there too.
On the authenticity of it.
Yeah. When church is good, it can be really good. And when church is bad, it can be really bad.
Yeah. So this is part of our new evangelism, right? The connection and evangelism go together.
Yeah.
Even digital connection. Oh, I said the word.
We live our lives online now. We live part of our life through a screen these days. So Jesus has got to be on the screen too.
Sorry. Religious history, the stories are always oral. And people would sit around a campfire and they would tell the religious stories. And then should we write it down? And there were people that wanted to write it down and people that didn't want to write it down.
Or they wrote it down and then only some people are allowed to read it.
Only the special people can read it. And then, okay, not only can special people read it, we've got this new thing that makes books. And then there are people that like books and there are people that hate books. And now we're just in the same conversation. It's like there's the virtual digital world and the not digital world in there. Yeah. It's like the Shakers. Yeah. Like the Shakers, this was an Ohio thing. There was a Shaker community down the road here near Kettering. They didn't have sex. Nobody was allowed to have sex. Clearly they're not going to create more community if you're not making babies.
I don't know. Progress, whether it is good or bad. Time marches on. Yeah. Like you said, the printing press was a revolution in the way folks did church. So is the internet and social media.
This podcast.
From your lips to God's ears.
Oh, Lord. Do you think they'll take our podcast out of context like we take the Reformers stuff out of context?
People say like the things I say on the phone out of context. What do you mean? Like, of course.
Yeah, that's right. Write that down. Write that down.
I think you should give us a benediction.
A benediction?
Mm-hmm. Benedict us out of here.
Gotta get the flock out of here. Sure, let us pray. Lord God, we want to thank you for giving us this time, giving us this media, for us to be a part of this new evangelism. God, work through our hearts, our minds, and our hands as we share a little bit of what it's like to be a pastor at our age and this time. And all of this we ask in the name of our triune God, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Yay! And now in German.
In Latin. Thank you very much.